Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us on our webinar today. I'm going to leave it a little minute or two for some more people to join. The numbers are starting to roll in nicely now. Okay, let's get started. So yeah, thanks again everybody for joining. This is our final webinar in our Work Like a Pro series. Today we're going to be talking about how can remote employees protect data from home. As I said, this has been the third in a series of webinars. We've been talking about how we can improve the work from home space. We've done previous webinars on how to improve productivity. Last week's webinar was on how to improve physical well-being within the home office, and today's one is going to be about how to protect data. So we've covered quite a lot of ground over the past couple of weeks. So I just want to remind you all that we do have a lot of resources online as part of this campaign. We've got landing pages on the Kensington.com website. And if you go to just Kensington.com, it'll be advertised on the homepage, and from there you can see all of the subject matter that we've covered over the past few weeks, including a free white paper that's available to download, an infographic which is also online, and it's also in the chat in the handout section of the GoToWebinar platform. There's some videos that talk about the solutions, and also on the landing pages there's a facility for you guys to sort of get in touch with us to find out a bit more information or ask some further questions or book a meeting with some of our sales team. So please do go check out those resources online. So for those of you that haven't attended these webinars so far and are unfamiliar with the Kensington brand, I'll just give you a very quick introduction. So Kensington, we've been around for over 40 years in the IT peripherals space. We are best known for the Kensington lock, which is something we'll talk a little bit about today. A Kensington lock is the kind of industry standard for physical laptop security. That's where sort of our brand heritage is and our expertise. But we over the years we've expanded our categories to be very wide portfolio of IT peripherals and accessories. And our real key sort of solutions pillars are data protection, well-being, and productivity. So all of the products within our portfolio help the user of the product improve any of those things. So yeah, without any further ado, I'll get kicked off into the content of the presentation. So just a couple of introductions on who's going to be talking today. You'll be able to see myself and Nick, hopefully. Nick is one of our European product managers, and Nick is responsible for most of the data protection portfolio that we hold, as well as some other categories. So Nick's the product solution expert. And Nick's going to be taking care of the second half of our presentation today. And my name is Rory Morgan. I head up the European marketing team for Kensington. And those of you who've been to these webinars, you'll have seen me before. So just a quick agenda, what we're going to go through. We're going to talk about a new landscape of data security. So a lot has changed over the past 12 to 15 months, and we've got some new data that we found ourselves, but we've also found lots of data from various places online that we're going to talk you through, that sort of talks to the new landscape of data security and what's happened and how the world is different now compared to pre-pandemic. And then Nick is going to walk you through the steps that we can take to secure data, especially in the home office, and the reasons why these solutions are particularly useful in the home office. So Nick's going to talk you through some biometric authentication solutions, physical security, as I briefly mentioned. He's going to talk you through the importance of safeguarding on-screen data. And then finally talk about some AES encryption and how that fits in with some of the Kensington input devices. And at the end, as we've done previously on these webinars, we'll have a quick Q&A session. So throughout the presentation, please take a look in the GoToWebinar platform. You'll be able to see that there's a box in there for questions. So please type in any questions that you have along the way, and I will read them out for Nick to answer at the end of the presentation. So please do that as we're going through. Okay, so this part of the presentation is called A New Landscape of Data Security. And this includes some data from a study that we did called Do Your Homework, Key Strategies for a Comfortable, Productive and Cyber Secure Distributed Workforce. So this is a study that we did across Europe with various different IT decision makers in various different industries and types of organizations. So from public sector to legal and financial services, through to warehousing facilities and that sort of thing as well. So it's a very broad overview of various different industries. One of the things that I wanted to point out here is that pre-pandemic, we were all working, well, most of us were working in the office. So that kind of changed last year when obviously the pandemic hit and everyone was sort of told to work from home where possible. So data now is beyond the parameters of the office, and where that data is processed and stored isn't just in one building anymore. So in an organization of 1,000 employees, that used to mean that you had 1,000 devices to secure in one location. But that now means that you have those 1,000 devices, but they're in 1,000 different locations. So that provides various challenges to IT professionals, cybersecurity professionals. It's much more challenging to keep hold of and keep control of where your data is being processed and the devices that data is being held on. When we did the study, we asked the respondents about where their teams were working. Over 70% of respondents said that more than half of their workforce was working remotely, and 40% said more than 3/4 were working remotely. And this is important, obviously, because we know this is the reality right now, and it has been for the past 15 months or so. But we know this is going to remain the norm for the foreseeable future. We're still going to have lots of people working from home in a hybrid model, with working from home and in the office as well. Another really interesting statistic which came out last year was that 94% of cybersecurity professionals are more concerned about security right now than they were in before COVID-19. So this survey was done in May 2020. So it was kind of right in the midst of all of the change that was happening with working from home and what was going on with the pandemic. But the reason behind this was that those in charge of cybersecurity within their organisation, they no longer had control of what was going on. They couldn't see people in the office. Their teams were working on home Wi-Fi networks as opposed to their sort of enterprise security level and networks and stuff. So there's lots of changes that have happened over the past year that's made it ratcheted this up on the agenda for IT professionals, and cybersecurity is something now that even more so than it was at the same time last year is even more important. And as I said, this is because people are working outside of the office. So with people working remotely, wherever that may be, it introduces kind of two big factors that can impact security. So number one is, as I said, home Wi-Fi networks. They don't have the same level of security as in-office networks, so they're much easier to hack and be compromised. We'll talk a little bit later about sort of the more specific elements of that, but my Wi-Fi network isn't as secure as our office network, and that's that's the same for everybody. And secondly, physical devices are no longer in one office. You've got work happening everywhere. So in family households where there's lots of people running around, in shared accommodation is another big issue. So I know people who work, they've got 4 of them working around their dining room table, all from different companies, different organizations, and their information is kind of all in one desk, as opposed to all of those people being in their nice secure offices as they would have been before. And then as lockdowns ease, work is going to be happening in different areas. So we're not going to be sort of chained to our home office desks anymore. We're going to be free to work in more public spaces like coffee shops, or working on the train as you commute back into the office, perhaps. All of these things will happen, and they have implications on data security. So as part of our survey, we asked about the sort of remote working levels, and 7 out of 8 of our respondents said that they expected remote working levels to be far higher or higher than pre-COVID levels. And this is, the survey was done a few months ago, but all of the information that's coming out into the market at the moment seems to be supporting this as well. So there's lots of talk of hybrid working, and the hybrid office being people working at home 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and then going into the office for the other time. So this is a real issue that we're going to have to contend with as we get through the end of our regional lockdowns and back into the office. Another really important point here is that cloud is the new normal. I guess that most people on attending this webinar will use some kind of cloud software, whether that's one of the ones listed on here, Microsoft 365, Google Suite, Salesforce, etc. There's stats out there from Gartner where they've said that their forecast for this year in 2021 is that organizational spending on cloud services will grow over 18% just this year to over $300 billion worldwide. So it's obviously a massive amount of investment going on globally, but it's a huge rise year on year. So organizations are really seeing the value of these cloud services, and it's helping them to operate more efficiently. But there are potential issues that come with that. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later. So one of the main risks that this brings is phishing and cybersecurity risks such as that. So in our survey, respondents came back and said that they viewed phishing and employee behaviour to be the two biggest cybersecurity risks for remote working in their organisation. So when we dive into why this is, the first problem was that the password security is really precarious. So 65% of people reuse passwords for multiple accounts, and those that have compromised credentials, those credentials are responsible for 61% of hacking-related breaches. So if you couple that with what I told you before about the increase of use in cloud services, the one thing that's stopping a hacker or a malicious actor getting to your secure, sensitive data that's stored on Salesforce or on Google Drive or wherever, the one thing that's stopping them from getting in is a username and a password. And those just aren't secure. Password security is a real weak link in any organization's sort of data security policy. I'm sure there's many organizations represented on this call that use things like second factor or multi-factor authentication. These are becoming more and more important, and Nick will talk to you a little bit more detail about that in a minute. But there's tools like Salesforce, for example, where they're mandating that second factor authentication is in place from February next year. So anybody who's using Salesforce as a tool will have to have some kind of second factor authentication in place. So the cloud services are slowly catching up and realizing that password security is not good enough, but it's still a major issue, especially when we're looking at stats like this that say that 65% of people have the same password for everything. So if one of their accounts is hacked, then everything can be hacked. Second of all, organizations have less visibility over their devices. So there's a stat here that shows that lost or misplaced devices are the second leading cause of data breaches. That was done. That was from an Apricot UK IT survey last year. So it shows that there's a real issue here with losing your device, because it's not just the hardware that you lose; it's obviously the data that's on it as well. And if you combine that with a weak password, weak login credentials, then it makes it much easier for a malicious actor to access that data. And one of the third points I wanted to raise here was that there's more opportunity for visual hacking. So there was an experiment done by the Ponemon Institute a few years ago that revealed that in more than 90% of cases where a screen is exposed, confidential data is accessed. So they did the study where they walked around offices and in various sort of shared working locations, and they just looked at what was on people's screens. And 9 out of 10 times they saw something on that screen that they shouldn't do. And that could be some kind of personal identifiable information, or it could just be company strategy documents or something that's sensitive to the company. So that's a real problem when we start to think about where those screens get exposed. As we move away from the home office into a sort of more hybrid arrangement, we're going to be working in public areas such as coffee shops, on trains, as I mentioned, but also right now in the office. My girlfriend's working from home in the room behind me. She's a nurse. If I was to go in there and see what was on her screen, it's not it's really something that I shouldn't be seeing. It's personal information. So we've made sure that we take steps to make sure that I'm not looking at what's on the screen. But that's happening everywhere in organizations. It's a real problem. Okay. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Nick to talk through what steps we can take to secure data when we're working from home. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Rory. So yes, I'll cover off some of the solutions that Kensington offer to actually overcome some of those problems that Rory has just raised as well from the statistics. But first of all, to give the kind of overview of what Kensington recommend as a a truly comprehensive approach to ensure your data security. The elements and the steps to that we would really recommend are, first of all, looking at biometric authentication. So that offers up an additional layer of authentication, beyond just what a password could offer, for example. Physical security, as Rory mentioned as well, a lot of the theft of a physical device can result in, of course, the loss of the value of that device, but it's also the information that's stored on that device as well. So it's almost like a double whammy when it comes to physical security. Then safeguarding on screen, that's as much about being in the office and in shared workspaces as it is, in your home if you're sharing that environment with other people, and also when you're traveling around to and fro from the office, coffee shops, for example, as well. So there's lots of different situations there where safeguarding the data you're sharing on screen, even unwittingly sharing it, can come into force. And then finally, AES encryption, which actually covers a broad spectrum of Kensington products. So it's not just our traditional security products or even our biometric security products, but also our wireless keyboards and mice as well. So it's that truly comprehensive approach to data security across the portfolio that Kensington offer. So first of all, using biometrics, mainly for multi-factor authentication where possible. So just a bit of a background about biometrics themselves. I'm sure many of you would be familiar with some of the biometric solutions that are already available and in use quite commonly on a lot of personal devices such as mobile phones and tablets, etc. Could be facial recognition. It could even be retinal scanning in extremely secure environments. But biometrics fundamentally is a physical characteristic of yourself. So it's going above and beyond just something that you know. So a password, as Rory said as well, it tends to be not the most secure way of authenticating an account because passwords are reused. When people change their password, they may just change it by adding a number to the end, or some of the most commonly used passwords are 1 2 3 4 5 6, very, very easy to guess passwords. So adding biometrics to that is something that is unique to you and allows that unique characteristic to be used as your password for additional authentication. And so talking about biometrics within the realm of multi-factor authentication, say multi-factor authentication because it can be many different factors. It could be more than 2, for example. But an example of multi-factor authentication you may already be familiar with is if you're logging into your bank account, for example, or if you're logging into say a Gmail account or an email account, and maybe you receive a text message from them saying, please enter this 4 or 6-digit code to also access your account after you've entered your password. That would be a second factor authentication. So by using biometrics for that, you are actually replacing that second factor with that physical characteristic of yourself. So it could be a fingerprint, again, in some cases with other devices, it could be facial recognition. But for Kensington, we are recommending, biometrics in the sense of a fingerprint recognition device. It's something that enhances that level of security. And it's something that, you can't lose your fingerprint. You can't, it goes above and beyond what just a traditional password offers as that extra layer of security. So within that, we're talking about Verimark. So Verymark, the Verymark fingerprint key family are the family of biometric products that Kensington offer. And as I mentioned there, it ensures that the fingerprint is something that you can't forget. You will always have that fingerprint with you wherever you go. And so if you use that fingerprint as an additional layer of authentication, that gives you that extra support, an extra level of authentication to actually access your account. It also means that in situations like this, for example, if you're on a work call, or even if you're in the traditional workspace or in the office, you don't need to actually fumble around with a mobile phone. So if you receive a text message, it doesn't look very professional if you pull your phone out in the middle of a meeting to then type in the recognition code. But if you just tap your fingerprint on the Verymark reader, that gives you that second layer of authentication as well. Importantly as well, when we talk about actually recognizing fingerprints, it's important to also recognize that the Verymark product itself only takes the template data, and that fingerprint template data is stored locally on the device. It's never stored centrally in any kind of server which could be hacked or breached in a giant data leak or anything like that. It's only that template of your fingerprint which is actually recognized by Verymark, and that's not even a full image of your fingerprint. It's actually just small portions which are unique elements of that fingerprint, which are then matched up with your user credentials to actually log you in. And the final point here as well is about actually having the best-in-class readability, so false acceptance and false rejection rates, meaning that false acceptance rates would be the wrong fingerprint being accepted for an account. So for example, my Verymark should not let Rory in. If Rory tried to use his fingerprint and it did let him in, that would be a false acceptance. Whereas false rejection rates is the correct fingerprint being used with the correct scanner, but not being allowed in. So my fingerprint, my Verymark, it should let me in. If it didn't, that's false rejection rate. We have the best in class when it comes to false acceptance and false rejection rates on our Verymark products. Now, also very important to mention, we've recently at Kensington partnered with the Microsoft Intelligent Security Association. This is, an association and partner group of companies partnered together with Microsoft to ensure that your devices and accounts are always optimized when you're using Verymark, when you're using biometric authentication, for example. And it's all to do with Microsoft wanting to go beyond passwords. And you can see that quote there from Microsoft, about them, saying that Microsoft have been on a mission to eliminate passwords and help people protect their corporate identities, and they're pleased to see, companies like Kensington support the goal of integrating solutions through the Microsoft Intelligent Security Association. And this is, an endorsed quote directly from Microsoft as well, and really shows, Kensington's intention and ambition to always support that level of data protection via Verymark as well. And so to give you an idea of the lineup of products that we actually offer within the Verymark range. So on the left side of the table there, you can see Verymark and Verymark DFS. These were our first to market products. These were the original Verymarks in the range. They're compatible with Windows 7 through to Windows 10. They are Windows Hello certified and also FIDO U2F certified. So it means that both products can be used to actually log in to your Windows Hello device or machine. And they can also be used as a second factor authentication fingerprint recognition device. So again, for example, you could use a Verymark, one of the original Verymarks, to log in to your Windows Hello machine. You could then register it with, say, your Google account, for example, and you would then use it as a second factor authentication device on that same machine. We then also have Verymark IT, which is a slight upgrade from the original version of Verymark, which again is Windows Hello certified. So you can use Verymark IT to log in to your Windows Hello authorized device. But the benefit of Verymark IT is that it has an improved sensor. So it's an even better false acceptance and false rejection rate on Verymark IT. And it also stores the fingerprint data locally in the chip of the Verymark itself, whereas Verymark Generation 1 actually stores the fingerprint template data in an encrypted folder on the device. Verymark IT stores that fingerprint template data in the chip of the Verymark. So it means whenever you take Verymark IT away from the machine, you're actually carrying that template data with you as well. So both are very secure options. It's just that there's that even more improved level of security when it comes to Verymark IT, because you physically take the template data away from the machine as well. Verymark Desktop is a brand new version of Verymark, which is coming out over the next couple of months. And this simplest way of thinking about Verymark Desktop is it's basically a desktop version of the original version of Verymark, with the added benefits of the improved sensor of Verymark IT. So you can still use it to log into your Windows-based device. You can still use it for second factor authentication on some of your favorite web services, for example, but it has a long USB cable, which enables you to keep it on your desktop, perfect for people working in call centers or home workers, for example, who want to use a fingerprint scanner to log into their computer. Finally, Verymark Guard, we have a USB-C version and a USB-A version. Both of these are importantly not for logging into devices. They are mainly for second factor authentication across web-based services. But importantly as well here, they are cross-platform compatible. So they're usable on Windows, Mac, and Chromebooks. But use case as an example, if you use a Windows-based machine at home, and you use perhaps Google Drive to store, or Dropbox perhaps, to store all of your cloud-based documents and files. You use a Windows-based machine at home, you store your files on that cloud-based service, you then travel to the office and you use a Mac, you can still carry that Verymark from machine to machine and actually use that as a second factor authentication on both of those devices. So the next step, so going beyond just biometrics and moving past just Verymark, safeguarding the data that's actually on screen. And I think, Rory touched on there as well, some of the user scenarios you could see is, imagine if you are living in a shared flat, for example, and you have people who are in different industries, or you're in a very data sensitive line of work. Though even people that you live with could be looking or seeing some of the confidential information that's actually on your screen. And that's just within your own home environment. But then once you actually start traveling to the office again as well, or going to work in coffee shops again, or libraries, or even in shared office spaces, you find there are even more chances there for people to actually see some of this confidential data, and we call it visual hacking. And a way to prevent that would be to actually safeguard that information on screen by using a privacy screen. Now, beyond just the data protection elements of a privacy screen filter, there are actually anti-glare and blue light filtering features inbuilt into the privacy screen filter as well. So even if you are never likely to travel to anywhere where somebody could peek over your shoulder and steal some confidential data, the privacy filter still has the added benefit of adding some increased comfort to users even in their home environment, by reducing glare and reducing some of the harmful blue light that can come from your screens as well. And conveniently as well, because there are so many different devices, Kensington do of course have the privacy filter selector to enable you to choose the right privacy filter for your device. Now, just to touch here on a specific product within our range of privacy filters, the Mag Pro privacy screens. These are our top of the range privacy filters. It's our patented design to Kensington, again offers all the blue light reduction, the edge-to-edge display options as well. But the most important part about the Mag Pro privacy filters is the ease of attachment to the screen. So what we find is in some instances you can find that if you have a privacy filter which has maybe plastic tabs on the side, it can be a little bit of a fumble perhaps to place that over the screen. But with Mag Pro, all you need to do is just seamlessly pick it up out of your bag or off the work surface and just attach it to the magnets directly on the screen. And what we find as well is that actually increases employee compliance to the rules, the company rules around using privacy screen filters as well, because it's so easy for them to actually use and attach to their screen. So this is the top of our range, and of course we offer it in all of the most commonly used laptop sizes and monitor sizes, and be able to find it on our privacy filter selector as well. But we shouldn't forget the basics. As Rory also mentioned earlier on, Kensington's brand heritage, really is founded and with the core being physical security. Kensington, invented the laptop lock back in 1992. Actually invented the T-bar laptop lock. And you know, that really is where the core of any data protection policy should begin, because you know, without that physical security, you are risking the value of the device. You're risking all the data that is also held on that device as well. And of course, since inventing the laptop lock, you know, Kensington have expanded the range of locks that we offer. So it's everything from combination locks, keyed locks, laptop locking stations, and then even USB port locks as well, to block off unauthorized access to some of the USB ports that may be exposed in more open public environments. But we have a wide range of locks there to offer as well. So, as I touched on there, you know, Kensington locks are compatible with 95% of laptops. So it's the vast majority of laptops that are on the market today, and, you know, can decrease laptop theft by up to 85%. But again, there are a lot of different devices out there. It can be a very confusing landscape. You see the number of different keying options, combination options that we offer. And of course, supporting such a wide range of laptops mean there are a huge number of models that our locks are compatible with, or you know, may be required by any end users. So therefore, again, we also have the simple Kensington lock selector. You simply go onto our website, go onto the lock selector, type in the make and model of the machine that you want to lock down, and the lock selector will tell you what are the compatible locks with your device, and that will include keyed solutions, combination solutions as well. And if there isn't a slot rather on your device, we have options even for slotless devices, including MacBooks as well. Now, this is something which we wanted to also bring to everyone's attention today on the call as well, about this year being a year of change in 2021. Because as I mentioned, Kensington invented the laptop lock, invented the T-bar laptop lock, more importantly, back in 1992. And ever since then have been the market leader, and really have set the standard when it comes to physical security for many different types of devices, whether it be laptops, monitors, docking stations, desk phones in conference rooms, all sorts of places you'll find our locks. But now, devices, particularly laptops, becoming much thinner, means there isn't as much space for the traditional laptop lock to be used. So we actually, new devices in the market are now using the NanoSaver slot. Fortunately, we've been selling the NanoSaver slot for many years now, so we have just as many options with the NanoSaver tip as we do the traditional T-bar tip. But it's important to know and to look out for this new NanoSaver slot appearing in many of the devices. And of course, come to the Kensington lock selector with the make and model of your device. If it would be an HP or Lenovo specifically here, for example, you may find that actually it uses a NanoSaver style tip, and we have the lock to suit that. So we're referring to it here as a bit of the changing of the guard. It's the industry standard, the T-bar, the Kensington standard slot, really has been the industry standard used across many devices for many years since its invention in 1992. We're now in that transition stage. We're now in that transition stage, and you can see that we're actually using, you can see a bit of a combination of the traditional T-bar and the NanoSaver being used across a number of different devices. But what we're expecting is by the end of this year, we're actually going to see the vast majority of devices using the NanoSaver slot almost exclusively. And this really is where, it'll be great for you to look at the devices that you're rolling out en masse to your employees, and really see what are the types of lock solutions that I should be using here. Chances are, if it's an HP or a Lenovo device, it may well be the NanoSaver slot. So come to Kensington and we'll have the solution for you. Now, finally, you've also got the element of advanced encryption standards. So AES encryption, as I mentioned, this is a technology which is not just limited to our traditional security solutions, such as Verimark would be example of one which does have inbuilt AES encryption, but it's also something which is built into our wireless keyboards and mice. So fundamentally, what it means is that when a wireless device communicates to another wireless enabled device, such as a mouse to a computer, for example, there's that signal there. And somewhere in the middle of that signal, a hacker could potentially interrupt that signal and actually intercept it and use that to actually hack into your laptop or device. Now, when you use AES encryption, as many Kensington products do and come as standard, you actually prevent that level of hacking. So that's what the AES encryption standard means, and it does also mean as well that, Rory mentioned earlier about how networks not always being quite as secure. When you're using wireless peripherals, and if you're, for example, you don't have a set or standard workstation, and maybe you're moving around and you are using some of these wireless accessories, it could increase your level of vulnerability. So having the comfort to know that actually any keyboards, mice, very marked products that you may give to your employees have this AES encryption built in as standard means that you have that extra level of security to offer for your network as well. So just to summarize the points that we've talked about there, the core, the foundation really is all to do with physical security. You can't overlook that fact. The theft of a device isn't just the loss of the value of that device, it's the loss of the data that's stored within that device as well, whether it be intellectual property or confidential customer data. Biometric authentication, second factor, multi-factor authentication is a way to also increase that level of security on the data privacy side of things and ensure that even if there is a theft of a device, if you're using biometric security on top of that as well, you're actually providing that extra layer to prevent any unauthorized access. Now, protection against visual hacking as well. So this is, if somebody's looking over your shoulder, it's a situation which could occur in many different situations, whether it be in your own home or out and about, moving back and forth to the office. And then finally, AES encryption, as I mentioned, covering a broad range of Kensington products. So you can see that this comprehensive approach really is up to you to look at the different levels of security that you want to offer, but Kensington have the solutions to cover all of the different needs across the board.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Nick. Thanks for taking us through that. Now we come to the end of the presentation, so we'll do some questions and answers. I've seen some coming through, but please, if you want to ask a question about anything that Nick or I covered, please put it into the questions box now, and we'll get to those. Just while we're waiting for a few more of those to come through, I just wanted to highlight again that there's lots of information online where you can go and find about data protection and Kensington solutions. So please do go to the web page that's on the screen at the moment. As I said, there's a free white paper that you're able to download, which will talk through the three main solution areas that we provide when kitting out a home office worker through data protection, well-being, and productivity. So please go ahead and have a look at that information on there. If you have any questions or comments that you want to get in touch with us after this presentation, feel free to drop us an email on contact@kensington.com. Or I think also my email address will go out to you after this webinar as well. So please feel free to drop me a note or to drop an email to our shared inbox, and we'll have somebody come back to you. Kensington, we have we're a global company. We've got people all over Europe and globally as well. So I know there's lots of different nationalities listening to the call today. So we'll more than likely have the person to get in contact in local markets as well. So, Nick, I've got some questions for you. Are you ready?
Fire away, yeah.
Okay. So we've got a couple here. Let me just resize this window. Bear with me. So we've got a couple from Lindsay Alexander, so we'll go through those first. So the first one says, I'm sorry that I missed the earlier sessions, So could I request a recording of the earlier webinars with any slides and or presentations along with today's sessions? So yeah, Lindsay, absolutely, I can help you with that. I'll have your email address from the registration data for that. So I'll send you over an email with the registration, with the recordings from the previous session, and this one when it goes live is normally about 45 minutes after we finish the webinar. If anybody else would like recordings, please please do drop me a note. I'm happy to send those over to anybody who wants them. Next one from Lindsay was on Verimark, and most of the questions are about Verimark, Nick, as I'm sure you can have guessed. So with the fingerprint, different one. Could I ask if a facial recognition is offered in addition to or instead of fingerprint recognition?
Well, I mean, using Verimark is a fingerprint only device. So Verimark itself couldn't offer facial recognition, but Windows Hello does offer, I believe, facial recognition. But you know, I would strongly recommend using Verimark, which is fingerprint only.
Yeah. And the next one on Verimark from Lindsay as well was, I'm sorry if I missed this, but do the Verimark devices work on Apple products?
It depends which one. So the Verimark which will work on Apple devices is Verimark Guard. That will be launching in July time. So that is a cross-platform compatible product. So Verimark Guard USB-A and USB-C can be used on Windows, Mac, and Chromebooks. But the other versions of Verimark are Windows only.
Lovely, thank you. Next question from Aaron. With the fingerprint key, if I picked up the oven tray and burnt my finger, will I still be able to log in? So can you put multiple fingerprints on it?
Well, I would say, first of all, it depends how severe the burn is. I'm no doctor, so I'm not sure on that one. But to answer the second question, yes, you can register multiple fingerprints with it. The limitation more often than not is actually to do with Windows Hello. A Windows Hello account, I believe, allows you to register up to 10 fingerprints. So you could have a different fingerprint for different accounts if you like. But yes, you can register more than one fingerprint.
Yeah, and also with our Verimark IT product, you can have different fingerprints for different accounts. So if our IT manager in our office, for example, has his personal finger and then his admin finger as well, so he can log in to anyone's account with the admin with one of his fingers as well. So that's something that comes with the Verimark IT product.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question is, do you have tech support to help on the certification process?
Which certification process? I guess. I mean, we certainly do have.
I guess it means for if an IT manager was going through testing of the product, do we have somebody internally that can help them test the product and certify it and stuff like that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so if we're talking about lot of kind of large corporate rollouts and things like that, absolutely, we offer a lot of support at Kensington. If you contact us and let us know your needs and your requirements. If you're planning to use Verimark for authentication on servers, for example, that's often something which is unique from organization to organization. So absolutely, it's not always a one size fits all. So we absolutely do offer some technical support to help with those large scale deployments.
Yeah, and we can also help with sending out samples and stuff like that for testing. We're happy to do that. Just got a question here from Paul Spur asking for recordings and handouts from the previous session, so I'll add you to my list, Paul. Next one, Nick's from Wesley Kenny. He says, Nick mentioned NanoSaver is on HP and Lenovo devices, but what about Dell?
On Dell, usually Dell devices have a wedge slot. So again, Kensington do have a lock specific to Dell devices, which uses the wedge tip to go into the wedge slot of a Dell device. But again, if you're in doubt, take the make and model number of the device, put it into the Kensington lock selector, and it will tell you what is the correct lock for your device.
Thank you very much. Lots of questions today. Another one from James saying, you mentioned that Verimark had FIDO U2F. Can you explain what FIDO is, please?
So FIDO is actually, it stands for the Fast Identity Online Alliance. So FIDO itself is actually an alliance or a group of companies who came together to actually create kind of a universal protocol to be used across, for authentication, basically, mainly across kind of web-based services. So some of those founding members, people like, companies like Intel and Microsoft, and yeah, there's a lot of other big, very big companies who founded FIDO itself. Now, U2F stands for Universal Second Factor. So that's one of the different versions of FIDO. So FIDO is the alliance of companies. You then had U2F, so it's the Universal Second Factor, and you now, the latest version of FIDO is actually FIDO 2, which is used on the most up-to-date online services, and actually allows you to use things like passwordless authentication, so completely removes the need for your password when using a FIDO 2 recognized service. But so FIDO itself, to answer the question, is actually an alliance of companies who came together to create a universal protocol.
Lovely, thank you very much. And then the last one we've got so far, please do submit a question if you've got any more. But the next one we've got is, we have HP and Dell devices. Do I need to buy different locks for each one?
Well, we very conveniently, we actually have a lock which comes with different tips as well. So we actually have 3-in-1 locks, we call them. So they come with a tip with a T-bar, a nano saver, and also a wedge shaped tip, all of which can slot into the same lock. So if you have that mixed estate of hardware, we do actually have those locks which come with the interchangeable tips. So you don't have to buy completely separate cables for every single device, but you can buy that 3-in-1 lock which comes with the 3 different tips.
Fantastic, thank you, Nick. Okay, well, that's all of the questions we've had in so far, I believe. Let me just check refresh this. Yeah, that's everything now. So unless we get another one in the next 30 seconds, then we'll call it a day there. Just want to say thank you again for everybody for attending. Really appreciate it. Everyone's very busy, but it's big thank you for joining our webinar. There will be a prize for the attendees that we'll get in contact with the winners. Afterwards, we'll choose 3 people at random to receive a prize from us. So please keep an eye out on your inbox and see if we get in touch on that. But yeah, as I said before, if you have any questions that come to you after this, or if you're looking for more information, please do email us at contact@kensington.com, or check out our URL there to find out a bit more information about this. So yeah, with that, I will call it a day and say thanks, Nick, for your expertise on this, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Catch you next time. Bye bye.